in those situations when people had to go into the bubble, is that they had got too much pressure by their attachment figures, that they were young, very early in life, and this physical engagement, this physical interaction they had with their attachment figures was so dysregulated that they said no to it. Don't put pressure on me. Leave me alone. I'm going to do it by myself.
Hey everyone, I'm Tammy Sollenberger, the author of The One Inside, 30 Days to Your Authentic Self. This podcast is for anyone curious about who they are, the different parts of themselves, and for those who want to connect with their true self. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
I am so excited today to meet with François Le Doze. How was that?
It was not. It was funny. It was funny. I like the way you pronounce my name. Yeah, do that again if you want to. This is very, very nice.
Do I
Thank
have
you.
to do it again?
If you want to.
François Le Doze. Now I said it with the O. I said it the wrong way.
Oh, yeah, this is not the
Yes.
wrong way, the way you guys over the pound do it.
So tell everybody where you are in the world.
Oh, yes. I am in France. I am especially, well, in the spot of France that is called Normandy, that you guys in the US often maybe have heard of, maybe not because of your generation, maybe older, because Normandy was the place where the D-Day landing happened at the end of World War II. And I'm just, this is the country, this is the place where all this happened. So we're related to you guys, to people like, yeah, from the US and from all those countries who came to Europe to liberate us, to free us. So yes, I live in Caen, Normandy. And yes, this is where I live.
And that's where you live. And if you were to look out your nearest window, what would you see?
Nothing, because it's dark now.
Do you have snow on the ground?
No, we had some snow last week, but you know the weather is so mad that now it's like springtime. It's very well amazing and scaring at the same time. So now it's like the beginning of spring, and there's no snow, and there is just trees waiting for blossoming.
So you were an IFS lead trainer. How long ago were you a lead trainer, and how many years were you a lead trainer?
I think I was a lead trainer starting from 2000 and maybe was that 14 until 17, something like that.
Okay.
Like 3 years. And then well, maybe until 18, maybe 3 or 4 years I've been a lead trainer. And I was the first one, a French-speaking one, was the first. Yeah, I think maybe I was the first lead trainer, IFS lead trainers in a foreign, based in a foreign country or in foreign linguistic region, probably, as far as I remember. Oh, maybe there was some in Germany, yes, 1 or 2. But yeah. But as to the French-speaking countries, I was the first one.
Okay. Okay.
So I brought the model to France and to French-speaking people by having Dick and at the time it was the Center for Self-Leadership. So come to do trainings in my hospital where I was working at the time, and what else? And I translated the book by Dick, the seminal book, and then I wrote my book about IFS. So I was really, I think I brought the model. I was along with other people who helped me to do that, but yeah, I had a key role in this, in bringing the model not to Europe, but to French-speaking countries, yeah, especially France.
And so that's a pretty big deal. So you brought the model with other people, but you brought the model, translated the book. And then something happened. You were like, IFS is amazing, but there was a but. And so tell me about the but and how you got to where you are now, which no one knows yet. It's an interesting story.
There was more of a crisis, personal crisis, I would say. I had been through my first big crisis. It was in the beginning of my 30s. I described this in my book that led me to discover IFS, to discover the power of this model, the beauty of the model, the wonder of the model, how I could heal myself with this, understand more myself, and start really be able to combine psychotherapy with with neurology, basically, and to start shifting from regular neurology to more behavioral medicine. So this was the first big piece of my professional life, the first big journey that I had. And so there was this beginning with IFS, and then there was another crisis, maybe, well, like, when was that? Maybe about 20 years later, yeah. And this second crisis led me to rethink of some of to rethink about life, about my personal wounds, realizing that my wounds, that the wounds that that were triggered at the point of this second crisis, big crisis, couldn't be addressed by the parts work. This was the key. Understanding that this core deep wounds that that brought me to this crisis had to do with my attachment wounds, and that I had to reconsider the way I couldn't understand this and address this with the parts self paradigm, and I discovered new keys like we'll talk about that later, polyvagal therapy and attachment theory. So at the beginning of this journey you want me to talk about now, there was the crisis, the second crisis. Not comfortable, but as you know, as we all know, crises are oftentimes big opportunities for us to thrive, to grow.
So I'm imagining that second crisis had this extra crisis, that the thing that was working to help heal you, IFS, wasn't working this time. Like something wasn't working. That self-to-part attunement connection, that wasn't enough, or wasn't, I don't know, that might not be the right way to say that, but that you had a second crisis and IFS wasn't doing.
Well, the way I experienced it is that as I was doing this work, this personal work with a therapist who is IFS trained, but who also was trained in attachment theory and used to practice other modalities, she helped me discover how the therapeutic relationship was key to get to my those wounds I was talking about sooner. It was through the gaze, it's through experiencing something with my therapist, as we were connecting to each other in a conscious way. So I was not doing this internal work not by myself, but mostly between me and myself, between my parts and myself. And I was getting out of this world and connecting with my therapist as a person in a therapeutic way, of course. But then I realized that I was really struggling with deep issues that couldn't see before, and probably the work I had done before, which is initially psychotherapy, psychoanalysis, and then IFS. But this work, not enough, inviting me to see what was happening in me as I was relating to somebody else.
Okay, so if I unpack this is what I'm hearing you say. So in IFS, we go inside, we have my eyes. So I had a session with a friend of mine. We do swap sessions. And so I was working with parts yesterday. And so I had my eyes shut and I was working with my parts. She was there and I loved her, but there was not, my eyes weren't open. I wasn't gazing at her, but I was inside doing my own stuff. She was directing me and guiding me, but kind of following me. It was beautiful. But what I'm hearing you say is this other thing was happening. Your eyes were open. You were looking at her, and there was something about your attunement and attachment and connection with her, that your parts that have attachment wounding was getting something from her that they might not have gotten from you if your eyes were closed.
I wouldn't put it exactly the same way you were saying, but something close to that. I would say that, and as I was joking, because she invited me she invited me to connect to her through the gaze. And as I was looking to her and I was receiving her gaze, I could sense that I was not accepting that much. It was difficult. It was painful for me to get that gaze from her, which was she was really nice, really open-hearted, and she was safe. But just to stay receiving her gaze directly was very difficult for me to do that. I had to do this drop by drop, and not much, not for a long time. So this was my experience. This is so hard for me to get that, and but I didn't have the sense that my parts were. It was not about parts having trouble with it. It was just me having had a really hard time getting this commitment from my therapist through her gaze, and I was reluctant to that. And now I would say my nervous system, but I was reluctant to that. It was not, and I realized there's something. This has to be. I need to go and to understand this. And I have another experience later I could talk to you about if you want about about that. Maybe I can talk about it now.
Yeah, that would be
Because
wonderful.
later on, it was maybe 2 or 3. There was I had the opportunity to invite Deirdre Fay, not Deirdre Fay, but Deborah Dana.
Yeah.
Very very well known by her work. She's been doing and she still does to implement polyvagal therapy and psychotherapy. So I invited her maybe in 2018. The workshop was about doing IFS and polyvagal, having a polyvagal reading of the IFS work. So this was the thing we wanted to do together. And at some point she invited me, she offered me to do a demo, regular IFS demo, that I was very, 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 I think in my opinion, good at. And she said, I'm going to do a polyvagal reading as you do the demo like online, really not afterwards, but so I did the work I was doing, and I found I was really I think I did a very good job. But at some point she looked at me and she reflected me that I was not connected to my client. I was not my face was neutral. She gave me I can say in English, I can say that a reflection of me. You can say that. Would you say that reflection of me as being not engaged? I understood later that it was her. She was making the point that I was not engaged, and I was not providing my client with enough clues of safety, relational clues of safety. To him, it was a he. And when she did that, I started dissociated. It was the first time I was doing this very good job as an IFS trainer, and yeah, it was and because I just received the reflection from her, but it's through the polyvagal lens. I started disconnecting. Suddenly I couldn't feel I lost control. It was really an experience of dissociation. And I started to regulate myself. I was kind of a beginner in front of, which of course I was really seasoned at this point. And this experience was, this is afterwards, this is so interesting that I was in this position just because she reflected on that. And I started dissociated. And this is the first time ever I was in this position to dissociate as I was doing an IFS demo. And I understood further that this reflection she gave to me was a reflection that was pointing to a deep dissociation in my nervous system that I couldn't see. And then I realized, yeah, this is a point. This is something. What I'm doing, while I do my François, I'm not saying this is for everybody in IFS, but the way I was doing the work in IFS was done from a space that was above the dissociation that I had, which was dissociation attached to related to an attachment wound, the same I was talking about earlier with my therapist. So those two experiences pointed to that deep place of dissociation related to my attachment wounds that I was not able to couldn't see before, and but which was nurturing also this crisis I was talking about earlier. So this was different ways to address this big thing that was in me that I couldn't see, and I had to see, and as we'll probably see later, led me to come together to come up with this model, relational intelligence.
Dun, dun, dun. Now
Ta ta
it's
ta.
drop dead.
Yeah,
So, wow. So all of that was happening at the same time, which I
yeah,
love
like
that.
maybe couple of maybe 2 years, 1 or 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm.
So Deb Dana pointing this out to you that you don't look engaged in your face.
Yeah.
Something I'm reading your face and and it's
Mm.
not engaged. And
Mm.
that, would you say a dissociative part? You notice a dissociative part, or you were you were
I was
experiencing dissociation? Okay.
I was experiencing dissociation, and before I experienced it, I think I was dissociated, but to a degree to that was still compatible with doing very good IFS.
Yeah, because my guess is that dissociation, so the dissociation, and again, would you use this language, was protecting a part that was connected to the attachment wounds. Would you
Yeah,
still use that language? Okay.
not a
Okay.
part. I would say it's kind of a part, but it's yeah. Let's say part. Let's say part. A part of me, a part of my system, a part of my psyche.
But you're using that differently
Yeah.
than
Mm,
IFS would use it now. So part of your
mm,
psyche, part of your system, but you wouldn't
mm,
be like a
mm,
capital P part that we would use.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so then what did you do? So you're like, whoa, what is
Yeah.
this?
What is this? And then because yeah, and then I was it was it was it was it was not comfortable at this point because I could
No.
understand just after the demo, wow, I have to reconsider most of what I thought. Well, I have to reconsider, not to cancel, but to reconsider the way I was doing psychotherapy, mostly through IFS, because I was not a psychotherapist before. I'm a neurologist, and I was not trained in psychotherapy or in psychology. So the way I entered the world of psychotherapy was through IFS, and so this was my big structure, my structure as a psychotherapist. And then I have to reconsider this, and this was stressful and scary. First point. Then, nevertheless, since I was in this training with Deb Dana, and she was teaching us polyvagal therapy, and then I invited her to do more of this, more trainings. So I got polyvagal informed, and this is important because then I was able to have a map of this piece that was underneath that I was talking about before, and I had no, it was not part. I couldn't understand it as a within the part self paradigm. I had to learn another way to read that, and the polyvagal theory helped me to do that. So it was the first piece. Oh, this is not unknown. This is not an unknown territory. This is a territory that I know, and I can get to know it better through this polyvagal theory. And then I relaxed a little bit.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I can't imagine when you're like, you go from a neurologist to a
Mm-hmm,
therapist, IFS
mm-hmm,
therapist, and then you're like,
mm-hmm,
wait a minute, this is blowing up my
mm-hmm,
mind yet again.
mm-hmm,
So then what would you, if I put I slowed you down for a second,
mm-hmm,
what would you call that? What was happening? So instead of we would use part to self paradigm, what would you call it now that we've got the polyvagal on board?
mm-hmm,
We've got the to use you as an example still, if that's
mm-hmm,
okay, the
mm-hmm.
dissociative and the attachment wound. What would you call that now, or how
Mm-hmm.
would you name that map?
Uh, I would say this is a dysregulate. It was an expression of my dysregulated nervous system I think I and we all don't experience as parts. And this is important. This might be a vocabulary thing, but not only a vocabulary thing. In the relational intelligence paradigm, we name parts, aspects of us that we can actually identify as parts. So when I work with the clients, I say, well, do you think when you say this or that, and you bring this content to this problem, to the therapy, to the session, then are you experiencing parts? I'm really asking people to identify if they can already, as they talk about the content and they go inside, if they can already make a difference between them and what is nurturing the issue. If not, I'm not saying to them, as I used to do in IFS, well, this is a part of you. I would not do the parts language, right? If the client does not approve of it, like, well, this is true, this is a part of me. If the client is not spontaneously able to say, well, obviously this is not me, this is a part of me. Yeah, I agree, this is a part of me. I would give up this and say, well, this is a state. And this is a big difference. So then a state, this is you, this is not you core self, of course, because you're so angry, you're so pissed, you're so desperate. This is not your core self, of course. But this is like, if it were you, you would say blended part in IFS. Maybe we're going to come back on this. But this is the way I would say, this is a part, this is you, but as a state, this is a state of you. And in my mind, and in the Polyvagal reading of this relates to a dysregulated nervous system, whether dorsal or sympathetic. And so in this way, it can be considered as a part of us, because it's not all, my nervous system is not me, and the sympathetic piece of it is not the whole system. So it's a part of it, of course, but not experienced as a part of me, like I have an angry part, and I have a pissed part, and I have a controlling part, not the same way. But it's a part of me, because basically it's not associated to my whole psyche, my whole body experience. It's not associated, it's dissociated. So, but not in a way that I'm really spontaneously able to experience it as a part of me.
Beautiful. Totally. Yes. Yes.
Good.
So it is a state of my nervous system. So what's coming up for me is I'm imagining just sort of simple, uncomfortable conversation with my partner, and I notice immediately that my nervous system goes into a freeze. My nervous system is freeze. It's not a part that comes in and freezes me. It's my nervous system goes into a freeze. So I'm dysregulated. My whole body is in a state of dysregulation.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say that a part of you is doing this. I would say this is how you are now, because your nervous system is freezing. Your dorsal vagal system is really triggered and is causing the freezing.
Perfect. So I'm not blended with a part, which I'm putting in quotes. I'm not blended with the parts. It's my nervous system is freezing. Okay.
Yeah, this is the way we would put it in relational intelligence, and then this leads to a different maybe we're going to talk about this now or later, but as soon as we understand this, we're able to make a difference between a part and a state, then we're going to address the system of the person totally differently, in a totally different way.
So what would you do then?
So in case the person really experienced parts, really, as I said before, I would start really. I assume that the security, the safety is good enough between the client and myself, and this person is able to do the self-regulation. So I would invite to do the self-regulation and use IFS. Mostly it would be based on the IFS model. I've made changes, but significant changes. But I would do this protocol. That is so fantastic.
If you have the gate, let's talk about the gaze. So before, we'll back up before we even do IFS or the new relational intelligence protocol. Before we do that, you make sure that gaze between you and the client, there's something about that. So before we go to regulating the state or regulating the nervous system or starting the protocol, we make sure that gaze is connected.
Yeah, I'm not gaze is one aspect of the co-regulation thing. Let's be very practical. Assuming that we start the session, the client brings a piece of content, and you have to go inside, and I would ask, well, what is happening in your body? What happens in your body? This is a big question in relational intelligence. And then I make it very short, and the clients would say, well, this is a part of me, whatever. So I could really do the parts language and spontaneously the client's experience these parts, and it would start the work. But in case, through self-regulation between the self of the client and the parts of the client, and I would facilitate that. But in case the person, and we don't have to relate very through the gaze or whatever, just by inviting the person, asking what happens inside, and there's a state of me, and I would confirm that, we may be sure both of us this is really state. Then as a relational intelligence therapist, I say, well, this is no more about self-regulation. We do have to, the nervous system of this person is telling me something that I have to understand, that there is something that is happening between the client and me as a therapist that relates to the relationship, because this is a state. This gives us the indication that the autonomic nervous system is dysregulated. And the first thing to consider in that case is that if it is dysregulated, it is because this system is picking up clues of danger outside of the system of the client, outside. And most commonly, it's those clues of safety or of danger, are provided by the therapist. So I would say, well, this is the thing to understand on a biological level, and now we have to do co-regulation. We have to stop asking the person to go inside and do the self-regulation, but to go outside and to address the relational piece that is happening to us through the polyvagal reading, and with other tools that are not the tools of self-regulation, but those tools that I got from deep data, plus other tools that I developed myself. So the physical tools and the cognitive tools that I use in co-regulation. So do you know, this is a big shift. This is really different in terms of so when I would not keep on asking the person to go inside and to check the parts and assume they are blended and keep trying to do the self-regulation. I would stop that, go outside and see what's happening between you and me as a client and as a therapist, and explore that place. Because in my understanding, this is the nervous system of the client is telling us something to the therapist, that there is something unsafe outside, that is perceived as unsafe outside, which is not true, obviously, because the therapist is supposed to be safe, but whatever, it needs to be explored and addressed directly. So we do co-regulation at that moment, and we stop with the self-regulation.
Gotcha. So self-regulation, to simplify, self-regulation is the client going inside, or us going inside and doing our work. Self-depart, all that good stuff. But co-regulation is coming out and saying, what is it like to be here right now with me? And that was going to co-regulate both of our nervous systems.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you know when that co-regulation needs to happen? Like, what's happening inside of the client, or what do you hear from the client that you're like, oh, you got to come out and we need to co-regulate?
The experience of a state. Very simple.
Okay. They're in a state and not a part.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes sense.
So as soon as this is a state, we draw the conclusion that this is related to the nervous system that is dysregulated, and this nervous system is dysregulated because it's getting clues of danger from the outside.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah. Perceived, of course.
Yeah.
So all this is very implicit. All this, there's not. If I wouldn't explain that upfront into the client, because this is we talk about this now because we understand what we're doing, but I wouldn't say that this way to the client. But this is my reading of it because he asked me, this is the way I get it.
Right.
Because oftentimes people would never say, oh, you're unsafe, you're a bad therapist, I don't feel safe with you. They couldn't be able to say that.
No.
Of course not. They would say, I trust you. But this is not what the nervous system is not telling, but this is not what the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, is experiencing.
Yeah, this is making so much sense to me because there's a situation in my life where it could be a healing experience, but I have a part that talks the whole entire time. And then I think, why am I not? Here's a chance for healing. Here's a chance for me to go inside. But I have this part that just rambles. And as you're saying that, I'm thinking, I think it's because my nervous system does not feel safe with this person. Not because they're a bad person, but there's
Yeah,
something that my nervous system is
yeah,
reading that
yeah.
actually, because I'm like, I don't understand. There's other places where my system is ready to go and unburdens like that. And this other situation is completely different. And I'm thinking, my nervous system is telling me something here.
Exactly. And it could be that for a given issue, a topic, you will do with the same therapist, you will be able to do self-regulation, but the session after, maybe 2 or 3 sessions later, maybe 2 months later or 1 year later, because you have really formed this trusting relationship with your therapist, but because you're going to a piece of you, a piece of your psyche that is connected to this deep wounds I was talking about, then your nervous system will be able to detect cues of danger in your therapist.
Right. It's not
Maybe
all or
this is
nothing. It's not this person is always
exactly.
safe or always not
No,
safe.
of course not. Of course not. But perceived in some conditions, in a given context, this will be this person, this very therapist would be perceived as dangerous.
Tell me about blending.
Ah,
Because tell me what you think about blending. If we can, blending is a big deal in IFS, and you have a
of course.
different perspective, and I would
Yeah,
love to hear that.
yeah. I think that, yeah, to me, blending is no more. If I look at this situation of blending using the biological, neurological, neurobiological reading, it doesn't make sense anymore. What we describe in IFS as a blended part, being a part that we cannot identify as different from self. And so this is to me a state. So this is not a part, this is just a state. And this is just, and then we just have to understand that this is this autonomic nervous system that is really triggered at this point, and we need to do co-regulation. This is very simple, and not to keep doing this work from the inside out, but from the outside in. You know, I know this is already what I remember that the teachings I had in the IFS when we addressed the issue of blending, and I remember that I can't remember her name. This wonderful trainer. I'm sorry, I can't understand the name. She did so nice words about blending in IFS, and she said, I remember that she said we need to do direct access. We need to. Well, she was trying to do this, and she had the same reading of this. That we need to go from the outside in to kind of talk directly to the parts. The therapist has to do something to the system. This is basically what you were saying.
Yes.
And now because I have the tools, I have this new paradigm, I'm able to go further and to modelize that and to say, well, we need to go further and to really use all the capacity that a therapist can have to really commit physically and cognitively, emotionally. And so I think that basically we have the same in IFS and relational intelligence, the same reading of it, that we need to do something to the system and not expecting that the system will be able to get out of blending from inside out. I think I go further.
Yeah. So you go further that we externally are helping the patient.
Mhm.
So externally, there's more effect. We're having more effect on the patient versus saying. So then, can we talk about self then? Because I think what came up for me is we're expecting their self to be the co-regulator or the attuner or the attachment repairer. So tell me what you think about that.
I think the self has to be the one. The one. I'm getting really. This piece. I discovered this piece in IFS, and I still so. I validated that 200%. Self has to be the regulator of our systems. But the thing is that whether it is the self of the person or the self of the therapist, this has to be considered. And in terms of experiencing blending, or I would say state of the nervous system, dysregulated state of the nervous system, then the self of the person is not able to do this because it's not allowed to by the nervous system of the client, just because of that. The client, the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system is saying, well, this is not safe. I cannot do that internally because outside there are cues of danger. So I won't do that until we address this piece of danger outside. This becomes safer. I have this safe proximity with my therapist. This is clear, this is validated, then I can go inside afterwards and do the work. So this has to be done explicitly outside in order to find this so important thing that is proximity with the self, embodied in another body, not mine, that is this body that is not me. And this has to do with the attachment, the attachment theory, because basically before we experience parts in ourselves, we first and self in our body. We first experience the self in the body of our parents, let's say, and yeah, and this is the first. We have to go through this first, and we have to, and then we have to, as a therapist, we have to consider that this might be the big piece that needs to be put in place, implemented in therapy, because this is, to me, a biological imperative. Mm-hmm. So the self of the person, still the regulator, but for some situations, and maybe for, it has to be the regulator through the body of another person, as I'm relating to this person,
Right, like my nervous system connecting to your nervous system, my cells connecting to your nervous system.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Or myself connecting to your system through my nervous system. This is thing. So it's not just self, it's an embodied self. And I would name it, I call it in relational intelligence, I call it the regulated ventral state. So regulated ventral state is the regulatory resource that we implement in the co-regulation. And I say, well, this is the same thing as the self of IFS. It is just embodied and is able to engage and disengage consciously in the service of the healing of the dissociation of the client. So this is this new dimension of a self-embodied self that is able to get close and disengage. So this is really, to me, so important to the nervous system that there's an experience of safe proximity.
Tell me, does it make sense for us to talk about the bubble now?
Oh, we can talk about it now, yeah. Well, this is another big piece, but yeah, we can talk about it now, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me about the bubble.
Okay. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the bubble, because I think this is so important. I discovered that. So, the first piece was, to me, the mind-blowing thing was to do IFS and to bring that to my my work as a neurologist. This was already something huge. Then, as you understood before, I had this other piece, this relational piece, through polyvagal theory. Okay. And this was a new world. I was able now to understand co-regulation and do this work with the autonomic nervous system. I call it the lower brain, and do this piece of co-regulation thanks to the tools that I was provided with by Deb Dana. So it's really about getting closer and doing the gaze work or whatever it was, but physically. So I did this. And it was powerful, and people really were able to blend, of course, to go back to safety and do the internal work, and as we said before. But for some people who were blended, so they were experiencing parts, I was doing the physical stuff that I had learned with Deb Dana, but they were still not able to go back to safety. They were resistant to that physical engagement, to those physical tools that I was bringing to the nervous system. They were not taking that in. They couldn't get in. So I said, well, this is weird because I'm still doing this commitment. They're not experiencing part. I'm not going to do the parts work. This is not what they need. I'm doing this work with their nervous system as I learned from the data, but it doesn't work. They're not moving out of dissociation. They're not getting their experiencing their sympathetic, their emotion. They're not getting out. This is not working. This is going nowhere. And then I realized that by just reflecting them, giving them the reflection of what I was getting, understanding about them, some of them starting to relax. And I said, this is amazing. Because I had noticed this as I was doing IFS demos when I was an IFS lead trainer. I remembered that when I was doing demos and I was making comments as I was doing demos for the students, I noticed at some point that this was very much relaxing to the system of the person I was working with. So I had noticed that before, and I couldn't understand that. And then when I did this piece of and I did the co-regulation, the physical co-regulation, and then I again did this, I call it metacognition thing, just making out loud, saying what I'm talking about what I'm doing in a very explicit way. There were some of them relaxed, as those in my demos years before. And I thought, this is something. And I realized that when we talk about, when we describe, when we do metacognition, we see and we make that explicit. We make explicit what is implicit. This is so powerful to relax the nervous system. So nervous systems that are so dissociated because of safety issues that are very, very deep, let us know that physical, because it was so dangerous in the past, the physical commitment is no more allowed for now. But if you keep committing, if you keep engaging, without being so direct physically, but indirect through metacognitions, through the representation that we have, and we make it explicit, then it's okay. Then I will relax a little bit, and I'll give more space inside. So this was the beginning of my modelization of what happens when people are blending and not receiving physical co-regulation, and I call it the bubble. That these people, in fact, well, you have the impression that you cannot do anything for them. So you do everything. You commit physically, but they're still stuck. And so what the first reaction inside is that I am powerless. I cannot do anything. So I have the reaction that we have inside naturally is to just disengage and say, well, this is too difficult. So I disengage. But this is the point. Our clients want us to still be engaged, not disengage, engaged, but indirectly, so that they are not too much threatened by the physical engagement, but still feel related to in an indirect way through metacognition. So I called it the bubble, because people who are in this state, they're at some point, they're at some degree, they say, don't come to me, this is the bubble. This is the limitation they are putting to our system, which is basically in relation to the dorsal activation of the nervous system, endorphins. And they create, in this place, they create a space where they feel safe, but in fact they are not. So this is what I believe, the illusion of safety. They feel they're safe, but they're still struggling with the issues.
So the bubble, then I'm the client, I'm the one in the bubble, and it is the illusion of safety, even though it's not safe, right? So this is why, right, we kind of get stuck doing the same thing, and sort of I'm living a life I don't really love, but it's safe. It's safe. I'm in my bubble.
Apparently,
supposedly.
It is not safe, because actually in this place, I cannot make choice.
Right.
So because of this, in the present, it is not safe, because I cannot adjust to so it's not safe. But so we understand each other. So
I love
keep going.
that. Right, right. There's an illusion of choice, but I'm actually not.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
great. And so you, as my therapist or my one that's trying to help me, you keep hitting the bubble. You keep kind of hitting the bubble. You're doing all
Well,
the
I'm not hitting the
things.
bubble. I'm not hitting the bubble, but let's give me an example. It's just a bit more clear if I do a little piece of work together. I would say, well, Tammy, I think that where can I say that? I would say probably I would say to begin with, I would make like so tell you like I can feel that when well, for example, let's imagine that I just touch your back and there was nothing happen. It was like, well, you touched my back, but this is not doing anything on my nervous system. I feel dorsal still, and I'm not moving out of my dorsal dissociation. And after that, so I'm getting that you're in the bubble to me. You don't feel safe with me. And I would say, well, I understand that you don't feel safe. Maybe that my physical commitment is read by your nervous system as a threat, And I would say, I would stop touching your back. I would go back to my seat and switch to the metacognition and say, how is it to you when I understand that from you? So I would make a reading of what's happening in you, which is my responsibility. And I would say, how is it for you? What happens in your body when I'm letting you know what I think about what's happening in you? So, this is really, it looks very cognitive, but it's very much relational.
I love that. I love
And
that.
you
So
would say, I'm touched, for example. And then this would be an indication that your sympathetic is taking over the dorsal. And if you're still stuck and you say, well, I don't care about your system, what you're telling me doesn't make sense to me, there's no point to it, I would say, then I would go back inside and associate to myself and say more and tell you about what happens in me when you are stuck in your bubble. And we keep going this, deepen the association through within myself as a therapist and let you know about it. So it's not like direct between you and me, but you know what happens in me. And so I still get committed to you, but you have an opportunity to just take it in or not. And your nervous system will sense it. And at some point, it gets out of dissociation and you get out of the bubble through your sympathetic activation.
I
That
love
makes
that.
sense?
That makes
Love
sense. That
that?
makes sense. I love that you're also sharing what's happening for you, right? So there's that
Yeah.
co-regulation piece. It's not just this like
No.
pressure, what's happening for me. It's also what's
No.
happening for you.
Exactly. Then so you no more pressure. Exactly, you no more pressure on you because in those situations when people had to go into the bubble, it's that they had got too much pressure by their attachment figures that they were young, very early in life, and this physical engagement, this physical interaction they had with their attachment figures was so dysregulated that they said no to it. Don't put pressure on me. Leave me alone. I'm going to do it by myself. So this is what has to be reread or understood as we do the therapeutic piece. So we understand it and address it at the same time. And so we to understand, to read it together, you and me, we make an association through the common reading of it. And then through this, there's enough safety. And at some point, the sympathetic takes over the dorsal and goes back to the ventral.
Is there anything else about the theory that you want to cover, or should we shift to next steps, what people in the IFS world that are listening, how they can use it? So anything else you want to share about relational intelligence?
Or there could be more, but because we're almost on time, I think it's the most important thing that can be said in an hour is already said. It's enough. But I could say much more, but it's enough for now. It's already a good. It's a package already that makes sense to be.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good. Very good. Yes.
Mm.
Okay. So Francois, you have you written a book, or you're writing a book about relational intelligence? Tell me about that.
So I've not written a book yet. What I've done, because this is new, I started creating my model, let's say, it's a very simple way.
Okay.
It was in 2017, so it's like 7 years ago. So I had to really build my training, and so I didn't.
develop your model?
develop my model, and so I had to do this. So I didn't have time to really write a book um, already. So this is happening now, but just a couple of months earlier, I had an opportunity to write a chapter in a book, which is named. It's in English. This is a book that is co-edited by Steve Porges. The name of the book is the name of the book is Somatic Oriented Therapies and Trauma: The Science of Embodiment Practice. And this is about collecting different experiences from therapists who have implemented polyvagal theory in their practice. So this book will come out in early 2024, and the chapter I wrote is named The Relational Intelligence Model of Psychotherapy, a neurobiological and relational approach to treating trauma. So this is going to be released soon, maybe by April, for example, probably, I think. So this is what will be an academic work that will be published. My book is being written, and some pieces of information can be found on my website, and there is an English version of it. And well, this is the beginning of it. This is being constructed, and the writing is coming now, because it's time for me to write about that.
Well, it makes sense. You're developing the model, you're playing with it, you're teasing it out. It makes sense that you have to do all of that before you start writing about it. But
I'm ready now to write. Yeah.
Good. And you've been doing some trainings. So you have one that's happening now in Montreal, or was happening, and then you have another one later this year, bilingual training in Montreal.
So I'm based in France, but I had an opportunity. Derek Scott from IFSCA really allowed that to happen. I'm so thankful to it, grateful to him. So I had a training already. Two trainings happening. Well, the first training was not through Derek Scott. It was a French-speaking training in Canada and in Quebec, and the second was a bilingual one. And this one was allowed by Derek, who invited English speakers to come in to enroll. So this is this one will be completed in next April, and another one is starting in next November in Montreal, English and French.
Perfect. And so if people want to know more about you and more about relational intelligence, they can grab this new book coming out, they can get on your website, they can possibly sign up for this training and just see what's going to develop. I can't wait to see what else comes. It feels like it's the beginning of something really amazing.
I hope so. And also there's this resource, just that Derek Scott is organizing a masterclass. So if people happening probably in March, as far as I remember, next March, so people can go to his website and sign up for it.
Great. Is that this March 2024?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Great. Okay. Anything else you want to say before
anything I want to say before we stop? Thank you very much. This is you and me. This was very, very nice time. Yeah, thank you. It was very comfortable and enjoyable time. Yeah, very much. But to everybody, what do I need to say more? No, I think really the big things I had to say about that is I've said.
Perfect. Can I ask you my last question, my fun question that I ask everybody? Yeah. If there's anything in the world that you wanted to do, but you had to do something different than what you've already been doing, what would you like to do?
For fun. Would you be disappointed if I say I think that the life I had to have, nothing has to be changed? Would you be disappointed? You would be disappointed.
Yes.
So I can see that. Okay.
To be honest with you, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can give you. But for example, I know before I took my medical training, I wanted to be an English teacher. So I think I really like speaking foreign languages, and especially English. So I love that. This is something so I would be I probably would have gone in that direction. I'm also a musician. I'm a flutist, so and I was good at that, so I could have gone into this. I'm also passionate about Christian spirituality, so it could have been another direction I would have gone more directly towards. So Are you, how do
I'm
you feel now with that?
I feel very
You're
satisfied
satisfied?
with
Oh,
that.
good.
Yes,
I'm
thank
glad
you.
you're satisfied.
Well,
But
thank you
fortunately,
so.
I'm able to combine all this because
Yes.
not music, but the spirituality and the English. Thanks to you, I'm able to combine that. So my
Good.
life
Well,
is,
good. I hope you play the flute sometimes, though.
yeah. Try to. Mhm.
Thank you, Francois. It's so nice to talk to you
Yeah,
and hear about
yeah.
what you've developed, and I'm excited to see where
Mm.
this is going to go.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I'm very grateful you offered me this opportunity for this very nice conversation, and plus this opportunity for people to get to know my work. I'm very honored. Thank you very much.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. If you like this episode, please subscribe, rate, like, all the things. My book is available at your favorite independent bookstore or all the places books are available. You can also visit my website, tammysalenberger.com, where you can download a free meditation on getting to know your should parts. You know, those parts of you who remind you of what you should be doing. They sound a bit critical at times. Yes, we all have them. You can follow me at IFS Tammy on Instagram and Twitter and the One Inside Facebook page. I'm so grateful for Jack Reardon, who created the new music. Jack is a graduate of Derek Scott's IFS Stepping Stone program. Thanks, Jack, for getting me. And to you, thanks for listening.